Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's so nice to have all of you with us this evening. And Thanksgiving for many means spending time with family and eating delicious meals and sharing laughter. And for others, it can be a painful time of year, missing family who are no longer with us, or longing for family and friends with whom to celebrate and spend time. However you're feeling tonight, we're together, and it is a blessing and a joy to welcome Shabbat with our Congregation Shalom community.
Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruch hu shemo, basru miyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruch hu shemo, basru miyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz.
13.
Shiru l'Adonai, baruch hu shemo, basru miyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruch hu shemo, basru miyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash. Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruch hu shemo, basru miyom leyom Yeshuato.
It is a pleasure to welcome up Elaine Keller and Sarah Acker and Margot Raz to light our Shabbat candles for us this evening. As you bring light to our community coming to Shabbat, it is wonderful to have you light the light to bring in this Shabbat. And we're on page 3.
Is this weird if I took my mask off? As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our day, be among those who kindle light.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which we live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam,
Asher Kitchanu, B'mitzvotah, V'tzivanu, Hadlik Ner, Shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, V'tzivanu lehadlik ner, V'tzivanu lehadlik ner, V'tzivanu lehadlik ner, Shel Shabbat. Lai 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 lai.
We'll turn to page 18 as we read Psalm 29 together. Ascribe to Adonai, O divine beings. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. Bow down to Adonai, majestic in holiness. The voice of Adonai is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. Adonai over the mighty waters. The voice of Adonai is power. The voice of Adonai is majesty. The voice of Adonai breaks cedars. Adonai shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God makes Lebanon skip like a calf, and Sirion like a young wild ox. We turn now to page 20 to welcome in the Sabbath bride, the oneg, or joy of Shabbat. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and during the last verse, it speaks of physically greeting the Sabbath bride to join us, and there's a tradition to rise and face the door of the synagogue, and when we say Boi Chala, to bow to the right and the left, to welcome the joy of Shabbat into our midst. We'll do that this evening.
Lecha dodi likerat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likerat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamo v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem ultiferet v'litehila, lecha dodi likerat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likerat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat techila, lecha dodi likerat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likerat kala penei Shabbat נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורי קומי אורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, לך דודי לי קראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לי קראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לי קראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לי קראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
We'll continue on page 24. There's a teaching in Jewish tradition that 2 angels go with each person from the synagogue to their home as Shabbat arrives. We read these words of Shalom Aleichem as we embrace all the good that exists in our lives and all the angels that have touched our lives. May it be for us a Shabbat of peace. Peace be to you, O ministering angels, messengers of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. Together, enter in peace, O messengers of peace, angels of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. Bless me with peace, O messengers of peace, angels of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. Depart in peace, O messengers of peace, angels of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing. And we'll continue with our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, on page 28.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. לה 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 לה
We'll continue with Ma'ariv Aravim on page 30. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim, בחוכמה פותח שערים, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים ומשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. You may be seated. We'll continue with Ahavat Olam, a prayer for God's everlasting love for the people of Israel on page 33. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean its struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We'll stand for the watchword of our faith, the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We'll continue with Ve'ahavta on page 36.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukeshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchetavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We'll turn to page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, together that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. On page 40, we lift our voices in song as our ancestors did on the shores of the sea.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osei fele, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Malchutecha ra'u לפניך. בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם לעולם ועד. מי כמוך? מי כמוך בעלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מי כמוך בעלים אדוני. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We continue on page 42 with Hashkivenu, a prayer for God's protective presence.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. אמן.
We turn to page 44 for Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו לבני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. We'll continue with Tefillah on page 46, and we'll rise in body and spirit.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Lihivnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, melech memit, umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yihalalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. We turn to page 55 for the words at the top for Ritzeh. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. We'll continue on page 57 at the top. Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu, ba'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam ba'ahava tekabel, u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. We'll continue with Modim on 58.
Modim anachnu lach, Modim anachnu lach, Modim, Modim anachnu lach, Modim anachnu lach, Modim anachnu lach, Modim, Modim anachnu lach. Shotahu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imoteinu le'olam va'ed. Tzur chayenu Magen yishenu Atahu ledor vador Nodelecha unesaper tehilatecha Al chayenu hamesurim biyadecha ve'al nishmoteinu hapekudot lach modim anachnu lach modim anachnu lach modim modim anachnu lach modim anachnu lach modim anachnu lach modim modim anachnu lach ve'al nisecha shebechol yom yihimanu ve'al niflotecha v'tovotecha shebechol eit erev avoker v'tzoraim. Hatov ki lo chalu rachamecha ve'hamerachem ki lo tamu chasadecha me'olam me'olam kivinu lach modim anachnu lach modim anachnu lach modim modim anachnu lach baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha ulechanaeh lehodot.
We'll turn to page 60 for Shalom Rav, a prayer for peace for all of Israel, written by our very own Cantor Perper.
Shalom, shalom, shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha. ועל כל העמים תשים לעולם, ואשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך, אדון לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך, אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, ועל כל העמים תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, ועל כל העמים תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
As we turn to Misha Berach at the top of page 253, our hearts turn to these dear members of our community who are in need of refuat hanefesh urefuat haguf, healing of spirit and healing of body. Those we love and those who love us are a blessing in our lives, and we pray for their refuah shlema, their full healing. Particularly in our hearts and minds, we are thinking of Shandol Bat Frida Malka, Julie Borochoff, Margot Raz, Carol Dubin, Otto Feller, Samsara Vizkaya, Sharon Rotman, Eliyahu Ben Maxinamala, Bob Radke, Lyle Rubel, Mark Cook, Moshe Ben Nechama, Jean Bass, Alan Turner, Steve Toplinsky, Myron Dvorkin, Esther Cohen, Lauren Cheris, Matt Cheris, Lisa Furstad, Terry Finch, Harav Ilana Miriam Bat Chava, Faye Levin, Sarah Rachel Bat Yocheved Alexander, David Feldner, Prue Precourt, Alan Elias, Tia Barrett, Wendy Salzberg, Steve Plotkin, Kathy Peltz, Avram Ben Naftali, Emma and Max, Doug Cruz, Nadiva Sarah Bat Liba, Sharon Rothstein, Devorah Bat Yehuda Malchus, Judith Naiman, Carol Rovner, David Goldstein, Marilyn Harmon, Chris St. Martin, Ellen Futterman, Risa Cyril Bat David Vachaya Ita, Barry Bursack, Debbie Kelly, Janet Meister, Michael Messi, Ahuva Yocheved Bat Chaim Valea, Susan Sack. If there are names that should be added to this Misha Berach list or names that I mispronounced, I invite you to hold those people in your heart as we turn to Misha Berach on 253.
Misha Berach Avoteinu ve'imoteinu Avraham Yitzchak ve'Yaakov Sarah, Rivka, Rachel ve'Leah Hu yevarech et hacholim Elna Refanala Elna Refanala Refanala, Elna Refanala, Misha Berach, Avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Avraham Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel ve'Leah Hu yevarech et hacholim.
We'll take a moment now for silent prayer for the words that are in your heart.
Yiyu l'ratson imrei fi ve'gyon libi. Yiyu l'ratson imrei fi ve'gyon libi lefanecha. Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri ve'goali, Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri ve'goali. Yiyu l'ratson imrei fi ve'gyon libi. Yiyu l'ratson imrei fi ve'gyon libi lefanecha.
Doing a little bit of rabbinic adjusting here. You've probably heard this story before, and if you were at religious school a few weeks ago, pretty recently. Its message is one of hope and gratitude, and it's perfect for this Thanksgiving season. A long, long time ago lived a farmer named Seth. He had 2 sons, the elder Jake and the younger Dan. And every spring and fall, they plowed the earth and planted seeds. They watched the wheat grow from tiny plants into tall stalks. Seth and his boys cut the wheat down and tied it into bundles to take it to the threshing floor to store it. They piled it high, so high that the bundles were taller than the boys. They grew up, and eventually, as happens with time, Seth grew older. He knew he could no longer plow the earth, plant the seeds, or cut down the wheat. It was time to give the land to his boys. He gave half of the land to Jake and the other half to Dan, and each one farmed his own section. Over time, Jake married and had 4 children, but Dan never married. Dan went to visit Jake and his family whenever he could. They loved spending time together. And one year, things were especially bad. The rain didn't fall as much as it should have, and the wheat dried up. There were not as many bundles on the threshing floor. One night, Dan lay awake thinking of his brother. It's not fair that each of us has half of the land to farm, he thought. My brother has 4 children and a wife to feed, and I have none, he thought. He should have more grain than I do. And that night, Dan went to his silo and gathered a large bundle of wheat and climbed the hill that separated the 2 farms and went over to Jake's farm. Leaving the wheat in his brother's silo, Dan returned home, feeling good about what he'd done. Earlier that very same night, Jake laid awake too. It's not fair that each of us has half the land to farm. I have my 4 children to help me farm, and Dan has no help. As we grow older, my wife and I will have our children to take care of us, but Dan will have probably no one. He should at least be able to sell more grain from the fields now so that he can provide for himself later on. So that night, too, Jake secretly gathered a large bundle of wheat, climbed the hill, left it in Dan's silo, and returned home, feeling good about what he'd done. The next morning, Dan was surprised to see the amount of grain in his silo was unchanged. I must not have taken as much wheat as I thought I did, he said, chuckling. Tonight, I'll be sure to take more. That very same moment, Jake was standing in his silo having the same thought. After night fell, each brother took a greater amount of wheat than he had the night before, and in the dark secretly delivered it to his brother's silo. The next morning, the brothers were even more confused. How could this have happened? Each brother scratched his head. There's the same amount of grain here as there was the night before, but I cleared a huge pile for my brother. This is impossible. Tonight, make no mistake, I'll take the pile down to the very floor. That way, I'll be sure that the grain gets delivered to my brother. The third night, more determined than ever, each brother gathered a large pile of wheat, loaded it onto a cart, and slowly pulled his haul through the fields and up the hill to his brother's silo. And at the top of the hill, under the shadow of the moon, each brother noticed a figure in the distance. But who could it be? When Jake and Dan recognized each other and the load they were pulling behind them, they realized what had happened. Without a word, they dropped the ropes to their carts and they hugged. It is said that the temple in Jerusalem was built on this spot right between the two brothers' farms. Their love and acts of kindness for one another proved that this was exactly the place where God should dwell. We have so much to be grateful for this season. Rather than kvetch or complain about what we could have seen as problems, these brothers dug deep and felt empathy for one another. They give us hope for a better future. They show us how to be thankful and how to help others. This Shabbat, what are you thankful for? What can you do to help those you love? And what about those you might have never met? Shabbat Shalom.
I was looking for a thank you song for, though we don't call it Shabbat HaHoda'ah, I'm not sure, Shabbat of Thanksgiving, but this song is called Todah, music by Kviomandisis, it's a very difficult name to say, and text by Uzi Hitman. Thank you for all that you have created. Thank you for what you have given to me, for the light in my friend's eyes and the light in mine, for the song which flows and a heart which forgives, for I exist due to all their worth. Thank you for what you have given to me, for the laughter of a child, for the blue heavens, for the ground, and for a warm home, for a day of wealth, wholeness, and uprightness, for a day of vanishing sadness, 2,000 victories and my two hands, for I exist due to all their worth. Todah. Todah al kol ma shebarata, Todah al ma sheli natata, al orenaim chaver oshnayim, al ma sheyesh li ba'olam, al shir koleach ולב סולח שבזכותם אני קיים. תודה על כל מה שבראת, תודה על מה שלי נתת, על שחוק שילד ושמי התכלת, על אדמה ובית חם, פינה לשבת, אישה אוהבת, שבזכותם אני קיים. תודה על כל מה שבראת, תודה על מה שלי נתת, על יום שאושר, תמינות ואושר, על יום עצוב שנעלם, תשועות אלפיים וכפיים, שבזכותם אני קיים. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving indeed. I really like that song. So we are going to begin our concluding prayers this evening with Aleinu on page 282, and we will rise together in body and spirit. And I would like to call up Sarah Lubar and Linda Berlin to do the honors of opening the ark for us this evening.
ולשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Asher Koach, thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom to our ark openers. We turn to page 294, and we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. While their physical presence is no longer, we feel them with us in our hearts. Their memories shine brightly, a light that guides us. Particularly in our hearts and minds this evening, we commemorate the lives of these dear members who passed in the period of Shiva: Dr. Stanley Kenwood, Doreen Salzberg, Marcia Bubbles Shumo, and Frida Fritzi Suker. For those whose lives are in the period of Shloshim, we commemorate Dennis Blackman, Muriel Kritzik, Gilbert Offenhartz, Bernie Sokol, and Mindy Spitz. Our memories pulled from our minds again and again, softened by the passing of time, glowing with warmth as we mark their yahrzeit of loved ones who've died at this time in years past. Elizabeth Abelson, Doris Arbetter, Jacob Berkovici, Alan Berger, Joan Berlin, Leo Berlin, Jean Cantor, Pamela Childs, Edith Chulak, Burton Cohen, Deanie Cohen, Hyman Cohen, Sarah Durzon, Ben Emerald, Nathan Faldberg, Lillian Familant, Lou Fody, Susan Galen, Jean Glickman, Gilbert Goldman, Philip Gaulish, Lawrence Herskovitz, Arnold Herstand, Solomon Holman, Frank Hootkin, Saul Israel, Beryl Joseph, Stephen Keene, Joseph Kohlenberg, Abraham Koretzinski, Teresa Kritzik, Morris Lang, Mary Levine Liebman, Rose Mayerson, Rose Milhendler, James Minesh, Harold Nash, Guy Neville, Ida Ozenoff, Joseph Pass, Florence Pinkert, Naomi J. Pivar, Evelyn Hertz Pollock, Ida Poland, Gussie Roden, Joseph Romanek, Estelle M. Ross, Evelyn Skolnick, Edith Nancy Sklar, Gary Stein, Ruth Stein, Natalie Steindler, Bruce Sturkin, Sydney Toller, Fanny Taxman, Morris Turek, Dr. Marvin Wagner, Rachel Walchuk, Jean Wilkinson, Ellen Wilner, Sarah Zarum, David Ziegler, and Louis Zucker. If there are names that I've mispronounced or names that should be added to our Kaddish list, please contact us. And if there are names of loved ones that you're thinking of that you'd like to share this evening, please do so as my eyes meet yours.
Elliot Silverstone.
In addition to these names, we think of those who we're holding in our hearts and those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. We'll rise together as a community on page 294 for the words of Kaddish Yatom. Yit Gadal Vit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Ve'alma Divra Chirute V'yamlich Malchute B'chayechon Uvyomechon Uchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Ulalmei Almaya Yit Barach V'ishtabach V'it Pa'ar V'it Ramam V'it Naseh V'it Hadar V'it Ale V'it Halal Shmei Dekudasha Barichu Le'ela Minkol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Da'amiran Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom B'imromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Zichronam Livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. And together we say, Amen. Just as the words of Kaddish speak of cherishing and celebrating life, we turn our attention to the life of our congregation. You may be seated. Tomorrow morning, we have Torah study at 9 a.m. and Shabbat morning services at 10 a.m. in Kesselman Chapel. And you can join us in person or virtually. The link is on our website. And Hanukkah is almost here. The first night is Sunday, the 28th. Keep your eyes peeled for a fun surprise from Congregation Shalom. We will light Hanukkah candles at Minyan each night at 5:45 p.m. On Tuesday, the 30th, at 7 p.m., we will have a Hanukkah concert by our very own Cantor Perper. And this coming Friday, December 3rd, is our Hanukkah Shabbat service at 6:45 p.m. Please remember to take photos of you and your family lighting your Chanukiot, and send them to Brian Avner, our Director of Congregational Learning, at brian@congs-shalom.org, and then you'll be able to see yourself in our Hanukkah slideshow. And don't forget to bring your own Chanukiah next week so that we can light together, bringing light and hope to our congregation. Our Milwaukee community is celebrating Hanukkah on the Hone. Each night of Hanukkah, a member of our Milwaukee community will light the Hone Bridge. Next Saturday, December 4th, the 7th night of Hanukkah, I will be lighting the Hone Bridge at 6 p.m. So watch for a link coming soon for live streaming the video. And on the final night of Hanukkah, December 5th, the Milwaukee Jewish Federation and partners invite you to join in a community celebration at the base of the Hone, featuring holiday treats, a live DJ, fire juggling, ice sculpting, and more. You can RSVP at milwaukeejewish.org.
There's probably a reason why we don't do fire juggling here, right? Should be off-site somewhere.
Sometimes we do. No, but they will be doing it intentionally. Absolutely. All right. We will stand together for Kiddush on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
לחיים.
And our closing prayer tonight will be Modeh Ani, expressing our gratitude to God for all that we have in the spirit of this Thanksgiving weekend.
Modeh ani lefanecha,
343.
melech chai v'kayam, shechazarta bi nishmati bechemla, bechemla, rabba emunatecha, rabba emunatecha. Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechazarta bi nishmati bechemla, bechemla, rabba emunatecha, rabba emunatecha.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai,